your Chargers linebacker, Deion Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to Chargers Unleashed. Dan Wolkenstein and Jason Balliet filling in for Jake Hefner from the LAFB Network. Boys and girls and children of all ages, the Los Angeles Chargers have their new draft class, including some UDFAs that we may be able to talk about. So we are live. How are we feeling? Chargers fans, Joe Ortiz got his first NFL draft with Jim Harbaugh under his belt. If you have not subscribed to us already, please do so. It helps us out a ton. You can find us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find your podcasts, as well as for free on YouTube at LAC_Unleashed. Jason Balliet, first
going on
NFL draft with the new regime. How's it feel? How are you feeling about it overall?
Different, right? Different. After a decade, we got a different vibe, different feeling in general with how players are picked, the process. I'm a little shocked we didn't see a trade back, right? They stuck and pick. We saw it trade up. And that was for Ladd McConkey. And so very different feeling trade in terms of the process, in terms of the priorities, in terms of that instant impact they're looking for. It didn't feel like there was a project taken in this draft. There was no pick where I was left scratching my head like that was a little bit of a reach. Whereas usually
there may have been one. But
which one do you think?
The Maryland corner, which I'll be completely honest, I never heard of him.
I have no idea who that is. I'm sorry, guys. I have no idea who that is. I will figure it out. I have a page open on him right now, but I watched the pick. I heard and I was like, man, look at all these corners on the board. We got DJ James, we got Cam Hart. I was so ready. And I saw Tarheeb Still, and I was oops. I missed that one.
Yeah, you said it. Different is absolutely what this draft felt like. It felt targeted. It felt strategic. And it felt nuanced, like someone knew what the hell they were doing.
Right.
The road was windy to get to round 7. And then you saw the icing on the cake, the sprinkles on top with the cherry with those last 2 picks. And I'll be honest, I was sweating a bit at the end of round 4 or during round 4 when there was no corner that was taken.
Yeah, that was a little concerning.
A little concerning. And I was a little uneasy. And I went to Twitter. And I think the team heard me because immediately back-to-back corners picked after that. But this is a live show. And Chargers fans, you are what make these live shows tick. You are why we do these, and you are why these are so fantastic to do and so fun. Do me a favor. If you have any topics, questions, thoughts of how this Chargers draft was for you, let us know in the comments. First question I have for the folks tuning in. Which selection was your favorite selection? Not who was the best selection, but who was your favorite selection? Jason, you and I are going to get into these, but before we get into all of the selections, let's get to some of the comments because this is what makes this stuff fun. We'll go into Danny Reyes. Chargers cooked. Is that accurate? Would you say they cooked?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job.
Yep, I think they did too. Let's see. Charles says, we're here, boys. Can't wait to hear what you think. Brad, he misspelled the middle word. Go with a bunch of O's. LFG's in the house. James Wagner says, love this draft. Hayden says, what a draft. Jorge Rodriguez, Jason. So that's what a Telesco-less draft is like. I like it. Larry A, no more coupon Tom picks. Jorge says, you mean a project third rounder?
I'm glad we're getting real into this.
Yeah, just wish we drafted a tight end. Good news, they got a UDFA tight end. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Young West, man, love that we triple dipped at wide receiver. Let's see who comes out for the top 3 spots. Talk about competition. I'm not going to be able to keep up with all these comments, so I'm going to do my best as we continue on to go through and splice. And Jason, if you see some here, like, please help a brother out. Put them on here so we can discuss them. Pacific Beats.
Oh, comments.
For comments, yeah. For Pacific Beats, he says, let's go. Brenden Rice was his favorite. So let's get into these. Jason.
Let's.
So the Chargers go round 1. We all talked about it. Round 1, the Chargers end up going with the man, the myth, that is Joe Alt. Lots of Chargers fans were in their feelings. After a while, you realize, wow, that's actually probably a good fit when you see what they did in round 2, when they go ahead and bring in Ladd McConkey, trade up for the Georgia wide receiver, who has, in my opinion, is like a hybrid between a fast Hunter Renfrow and Jordan Addison on the Vikings. He is like the hybrid of those two selections. I hear a lot of people talk about like it's the easy comp, the Wes Welker, the Julian Edelman type. Bigger than those. He's bigger than those. So I think he can do more than them. He could do what they did, but also can do more than them. And then you couple that with probably the most Jim Harbaugh pick there was, aside from maybe the last pick in the draft. They go, instead of corner, and this is, I think, when people started to worry, they go and get most people's LB1, the guy who played with 1.5 broken hands. Junior Colson, also probably BPA, shocked that he even was there, to round out day 2.
1.5?
Yeah, his one hand was broken. I think Jim Harbaugh talked about it. His one hand was broken. He had bones also broken in another hand. I think it was a finger. First 3 picks. Let's snap the line. How are you feeling about these picks and how it set up the rest of the draft?
Instant impacts. That's the key thing, and that's what they needed to do. I went and said they didn't swing for the home runs, right? They kind of stayed safe, and they took the guys that had high floors but still good ceilings. I think nobody would doubt if that Joe Alt can become a superstar in this league. Then they went and got Ladd McConkey, who I think really pairs up well with Justin Herbert's skill set. And so you look at this instant impact and how it sets up the rest of the draft, and how they looked for players that could come in and fill spots on this roster right now, not projects. Go right now and fill this roster out because they needed to, or they weren't going to compete. So to me, that really started with what kind of identity this draft class was getting. And then it just kind of like was icing on the cake in that 6th, 7th round, 5th round, when the entirety of day 3, honestly, when they started gathering players with that same high character instant impact trait that they started with early. Yeah,
you said impact. I forget who was saying it on the NFL draft live coverage on NFL Network, but typically you're looking for 2-3 starters, like 2 or 3 impact players from every draft that can make an immediate impact on your team. So let's think about this for a second. So 2 or 3, okay? I'd argue they already have 3 just on day 1 and 2.
Yeah, Ladd's going to start.
No question.
Alt's going to start. Colson should start.
Colson, I believe, will start, and I think he'll have the green dot. And I was actually going to get to that. I think he'll have the green dot. And this may sneakily be one of the best selections of any team the entire draft.
Colson?
And hear me out. Colson, and hear me out. Chargers defense was essentially atrocious last year, and arguably for most of the last several years. You can talk about the excuses and reasons why and all that, but long story short, snap the line, look at the stats. There you go. They go ahead and bring in a new head coach. They bring in a new defensive coordinator from college that had just won a chip, that was a perennial top 3 defense, and the defensive coordinator was arguably the hottest commodity of any coordinator out there. He comes with Jim Harbaugh and needs to instill this new defense and a new regime. And then he brings in the player who was the quarterback of the defense along with the coordinator to then communicate said plays with the entire team. So not only is the coach having to explain stuff, but the guy who's actually facilitating the plays to the rest of the team I think it was Daniel Jeremiah was talking about it. Like, he's literally going to be the one being listened to by veterans. He'll be teaching Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, the playbook.
He's going to be comfortable from the get-go, which is huge for a rookie. He doesn't have to learn anything.
His defense.
He can hit the ground running. He can hit the ground running.
I think about that. I'm like, how crazy is that? Like, I can't think of a scenario where somebody can quarterback the defense from a player perspective, connected that intimately with the head coach and, hell, the GM and the coordinator, because the GM had Mike McDonald, who was there when he had Junior Colson. And rewind 3 years ago, Mike McDonald, I heard this from, who was saying this? I think it was Brugler or Nate Tice, one of the two from The Athletic. They had talked to Mike McDonald, and Mike McDonald was asked who the best player was. And this was the Aiden Hutchinson year. And everyone thought he was going to say Aiden Hutchinson. And he said Junior Colson was actually the best player he had.
I did not know that.
I legit think Junior Colson might be the most impactful single player to a team and to their success across the NFL, all things considered. I can't think of any more of an impact that a player can bring than signaling the defense, knowing the scheme, being the mic, and having experience.
And he was did any linebackers go before him? How many linebackers went before him?
I think maybe
went, right?
Cooper. Cooper may have gone before him.
Okay. And Peyton Wilson went a little bit later.
Peyton Wilson went a lot later. He fell.
To the end of the third, right? Or was it early fourth?
No, I think it was at least the fourth. He went to the Steelers.
Okay. Yeah, I can't think of, because not only is he probably going to be, he feels like a veteran in the defense, right? As a rookie, played in it for multiple years. He's going to a linebacker room that needs the help. He's going to be hitting the ground running, starting from the get-go, I think.
Yeah.
Really
Day one
interesting
starter.
Yeah, a really interesting linebacker room, by the way. Extremely different from how it looked even a couple months ago. And
Navarro Bowman was hyped.
Right. And is saying he stood on the table for him from day one. Was that the words he used?
Yep.
And man, I feel like not a lot of players have gotten the praise that Colson has over the years in terms of coaches and other players on his team just hyping him up and saying how much they love him. And anytime you get a player like that, and he's coming to a team that has his former coordinator and former head coach, he's already comfortable in this system, ready to go, has the athleticism he does. I mean, yeah, I can't find an argument for your logic, so I'm going to let it stand for now. I'll let it slide.
Good. Forgotten Locale, $4.99 donation. Shout out. Thank you. And I know you've been rocking with us for a long time, Forgotten Locale, so appreciate you. Salute. I owe Ortiz's regime an apology. They definitely cooked. Also, thanks for all the pre-draft coverage. I love these shows. We love these shows as well. Yeah. My normal co-host, Jake Hefner, after Joe Alt was selected, was a little in his feelings. I think I may have rubbed off on him a bit with the whole Malik Neighbors thing, and he felt that, I'm paraphrasing, it could have been a better selection than Joe Alt. And then it turned into, let's fast forward, let's wait till day 2 ends before I give judgment. Then fast forward, you go with the best tackle, you go a first round caliber wide receiver, you go arguably a second round, crazy that he fell, linebacker. Now you're cooking. And then everyone's wondering, all right, well, here comes the corner. We got to go corner. And what do you know? I
was freaking out, man. I was freaking out.
So day 3 starts, and Justin Eboigbe from D1 Alabama is a selection interior defensive line, wrecker, all SEC selected. As soon as I saw that it was not a corner, I was like, oh, okay. I took myself out of the we need a corner mindset and liked the pick. fits the Jim Harbaugh narrative, fits their type, fits the culture. It fits what they want. It fits the need at interior. How are you feeling before and after you found out about this?
I feel like you had to take yourself out of the mindset of, man, they really need this. They really need this so bad right now. And really just put yourself into the mindset of who is the best player on this board right now. And the second you would transfer from the old perspective to the new perspective, it would shift, right? You go, all right, I get this. I get this a lot, actually. And that happened probably 3 times in this draft. You know, you're going from Neighbors to Alt, and you're just like, man, I wanted Neighbors. But then you go to BPA, and you're like, well, you know, that's our BPA. And I can't find fault with that because Joe Alt is a phenomenal player. If you really have him that highly rated, then I'm all for it. And then it goes to Ladd McConkey. I actually had no argument there. I was like, all right, well, if that's your BPA, I understand, because a lot of people had, including myself, had him as like a borderline first round player. I think wide receiver 7 for me behind Javon Baker and Brian Thomas Jr. and I think one more. So, and that just goes to show how good the receiver class was. The only one where I didn't have that at all, like there was no pause at all, where I just immediately loved the pick. Well, I mean, there was one later too, but was Junior Colson, where I was like, that just makes too much sense. That's
Home
just
run.
a good pick.
And I was wanting a corner. I was wanting a corner then. And then when I saw Junior Colson was there, I'm like, he's a BPA. Like, he's got to be a pick. It makes way too much sense. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who was on the board with Junior Colson, but it was very blatantly obvious. Like, this guy should not be here still at all.
Yeah. Real quick, Trevor McHugh, who is a Michigan expert, he came on this as soon as the Harbaugh news broke that they were coming to the Chargers. And Trevor basically gave all of Chargers fans like a preview of every single thing that Chargers fans should expect. And the guy nailed everything. Like, he was Notre Dame. I shouldn't say Notre Dame because I know Notre Dame and Michigan aren't cool, but the guy was amazing. Trevor McHugh, hey boys, go blue. Congrats on the Harbaugh. Should have bet you on the alt pick because he did actually predict they were going to go alt or I think it was alt or Brock Bowers. Best Chargers coverage on the beat. Trevor, you're the best, man. Got to get to the show now because we also know that Chargers Unleashed had a over-under on the number of Michigan players selected by Jim Harbaugh. The line was set at 1.5.
We were right. We were right.
We all said over, but boy, did it take till the very end for it to go over. But that was the guy I was counting on, Cornelius Johnson, which we'll get to here in a second. So I'm freaking out. I think Chargers fans are freaking out. Fans in the chat, listeners, how are you feeling before the 5th round? Before the 5th round, how are you feeling? Let's give this draft a grade before round 5. Let's go around before round 5. What was your grade? Put it in the chat. I'll put some up here. People are questioning if he will wear the green dot. I honestly will be surprised if he does not wear the green dot. People are saying Derwin might wear the green dot. People are saying that maybe Denzel Perryman might wear the green dot.
I don't know if Denzel Perryman is going to start all 3 downs.
In my opinion, who knows the defense more? Junior Colson or Derwin James?
Yeah, I mean, and I think I don't know if Derwin James would be.
And honestly, I'd rather him not.
I'd
rather Derwin not wear the green dot. Honestly, right. I'd rather him not.
Because we're just coming off a season and where Derwin had way too freaking much on his plate, and we were all saying all year, this dude is doing way too much. Take some away from him. Just let him be Derwin James. I would rather not repeat the mistakes of just put everything on his plate and watch him fall apart. Like I'm not for that.
I almost had a heart attack right now. Munford Point Marine said Slater resigned, and I was like, resign. Woo! That hyphen is important, fellas. Please help me out. Hayden says the quarterbacks bring some impact. I agree. Okay. Any non-quarterback position, I think Junior Colson probably most impactful. So, Jason, I think the part that we started to realize probably Junior Colson was when we were like, oh, snap, this is BPA time.
Mm-hmm.
Different vibe. Comparing that 3rd round pick to other 3rd round picks we've experienced previously. And this is where I started to realize, whoa, like this is different.
What 3rd round picks? Where'd they go?
Like, I can't speak to one. Like, I think Jake said Keenan Allen, he's a 3rd round pick, right? I think he
Josh
slid the
Palmer.
third round.
Josh Palmer was a third round pick, right? Or was he second?
Yes, he was third.
Okay, he's third.
I mean, still, I think he is by far, because Josh Palmer, I think, was on at the time, that was a reach.
No, yeah, it was. So third round was usually when you got to this range where you were talking about this is where the projects start, right? This is where they look for somebody in that day 3 range where they really think, okay, like who can we work with? Who can we develop? And that's why you would get these picks where everybody would kind of like throw their hands in the air and think that doesn't make any sense, or he went way too early. And it worked out a couple of times. But for the most part, it was very much like the bane of our existence. And this time it was the complete opposite. Let's go with the guy who we know is the best player on the board right now. And it was just a complete shift from what we're accustomed to. And I, for one, was pleasantly not surprised. I saw it coming once I saw Junior Colson on the board. I was like, all right, well, that's I'd put money on that right now. And sure as heck, they took him. And I'm a big fan.
Yeah, so basically once we snapped the line at round 4, I realized, so pick round 1 was like, okay, this is Harbaugh's team and Ortiz's team. Like, I got to put my Ortiz and Harbaugh hat on, because enough of me doing what I think I would want, I think it's what Harbaugh and team want. And it's very different than we've been used to under the previous regimes, whether that was with Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore, and all, it's all different. First thing was, wow, okay, the Harbaugh effect is real. Like, they're former to fist, they're using the spear with offensive line, protecting the quarterback, establishing run game, whatever. Then round 2 comes, and I'm like, okay, Ladd McConkey, like, that is a scheme, like, culture fit. Like, okay, like, again, that is and it's also a BPA thing. So now you've gotten 2 rounds in a row where you can argue they got the best player on their board. Then you go to round 3, best player available again. And I'm like, this is where I realized, all right, like, this is a Ortiz special thing. This is what I've been looking for. This is the type of selections that we've seen in Baltimore, in San Francisco, in Kansas City, and everywhere else. We're like, how does this keep happening? Philly, it happened this year again. But it's happening in the Chargers. Then you get to round 4, you get the interior defensive line. I'm like, all right, it's not the corner who I wanted. There's a bunch of corners left here, but it's not the one I wanted. But, like, also, you can argue that was a BPA pick and a culture, a scheme, and it physicality.
It made sense when you see who they took next with Cam Hart. Like the skill set he brings in terms of looking for the ball, in terms of the production on the ball. It makes a lot of sense that they paired that up with Cam Hart, who that's probably Cam Hart's largest knock is ball production. And so it made sense to go and get the guy that's still on your board that you believe is the best at that. So your BPA to pair up with Cam Hart.
Yep. So I think in the chat, I asked a bunch of people what the grade was prior to round 5. And everybody looked like there's a bunch of B pluses, A minuses, A's. I saw one like C plus, which is crazy to me, but whatever.
C plus.
So we got B's and A's. And then we fast forward to round 5. And I think this is kind of when things started cooking. This is when I was like, oh, snap. This is where I think I said on X that this is the linchpin round. They got to get these 2 picks in round 5 right. And they gotta get a corner here, man. I'm like looking at free agent corners, which there probably could be one as well. And then the Chargers go out and they go double dip status. And they bring in Maryland Tarheeb Still. And then the guy that I wanted a round earlier, somehow, again, they go BPA, bring in Notre Dame corner Cam Hart. Looks like they got their outside corner in Cam Hart. Looks like they got their nickel guy in Tarheeb Still.
And I promise I will learn who Tarheeb Still is at some point this week. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, the size of the sigh that I had when Cam Hart was selected, gigantic.
Yeah,
gigantic.
You know who I was holding out hope for? I was begging practically, but Cam Hart was on my list of corners that I really wanted in that spot.
Corners just hell, man.
Yeah. And it really goes to show how deep corner was as well. It's like teams, there were still good corners available deep in round 5 and some in round 6 as well. And with Cam Hart, that pick, I was excited for that pick because you're getting somebody who, first, let me just start with this. He's almost 6'3", or is he 6'3" and some change? I think it's almost 6'3".
I think he's 6'1" and change, I believe.
6'1" and change. So he was clocked at 23 miles an hour.
Check that. It might be 6'2" and change. It might be 6'2" and change, actually.
It's 6'3" on the dot is what the combine has.
Okay.
6'3", 202.
Shoot.
33 inch arms, 78 and 7/8 wingspan. Ran a 4.5, but he was clocked on-field GPS numbers of 23.01 miles per hour at 6'3". That's ridiculous. How? I don't know. So you're talking about this just freak athlete. He was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list because of that speed and because of his size, because of his explosiveness in his lower half. And so with Cam Hart, you're really getting this guy that has all the tools in the world that you are really lacking at corner right now. I know that I've seen that so much on Twitter where it's, oh man, all our corners are 5'9", 5'10", and man, I get that. And now you have this,
it's not wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong. And so you lose Michael Davis in the offseason and you bring in Cam Hart, who maybe has a little bit of a similar of a problem that Michael Davis had coming into the NFL, which is the ball production, getting his head around, getting flag. He has twice the flags that he does ball production. So just keep that in mind with Cam Hart. There's a little bit to work on there. I believe he had
up. Yep.
Yeah, I believe he had 9 penalties versus like 3 passes defended in his final season, or 4 passes defended. So there's something to work on here. But in terms of just getting a guy with tools who is very willing to participate against the run, though his technique does need to be a little bit tweaked, and just his ability to play special teams as well. Really good special teamer. I can't think of a better fit for Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter on this defense. And to pair him with a guy who does have that ball production that can come in and a little bit on the smaller side, going to play nickel, but come in and play that zone in the middle. Maybe a little bit of that safety 3 that the Chargers asked for in that Minter defense as well. Maybe we'll see. I think that's a really good pair, and you can see what they were going for in that round in terms of getting Cam Hart and getting Tarheeb Still, and kind of pairing those two together to kind of cover each other's faults. So, yeah, big fan of the Cam Hart.
Honestly, once Cam Hart was picked, I am in my feelings. I am all caps. We back, baby. I am ready to rock with this draft.
Were we gone? Were we gone?
Yeah, I was on cloud 9. That was the one thing. I'm like, if you don't get a corner here, these guys are not going to be here. They need a starting caliber corner. And I'm already thinking like going in UDFAs and going in, like, you can't rely on that. And the fact they got him in the 5th, I'm like, well, holy crap. You mentioned the size. Like, the guy's incredible. I think he only gave up 15 receptions the entire year.
And his longest reception was 36 yards, and it was the only one over 25 yards over the course of the entire season. So only gave up 1 deep ball. It's deep. It was only 30-something yards the entire season.
He's a versatile defender. These are the notes I have. Versatile defender. He's great in coverage. His read and react instincts are really good. You mentioned it. He's a little flaggy, but I think that's a coaching thing, and I think you can fix that. Real quick, by the way, we've been prepping a bit for this. 12 UDFAs and counting, says Dylan. I know a few of them. But folks in the chat, let us know. Like, I legit don't even know after maybe 2 or 3 of them. So after round 5, I think Chargers fan. Oh, I can speak for myself. I'm like cloud 9, right? I'm ready to go. And then we get to round 6 and 7, which, hot damn. I was floored by 1, BPA stuff again. 2, No shit, they're going to pick him. This is too good of a fit. Kimani Vidal, for folks who have not seen this kid, he had almost 1,700 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns this past season alone.
It's the last stat that gets me. The last stat that makes me really excited and why I loved watching Kimani Vidal so much.
He's a finisher. The kid has more 10-plus yard runs this year than any running back in FBS. More than all of them.
94 missed tackles forced.
94. I think that's second most. Is that second most?
I believe it was second most in college football.
And they got him in the 6th round. 6th.
Just think about it. 94 missed tackles and 295 attempts. So every third play, he was forcing a missed tackle. That's an insane number. Insane number. Less than 300 carries, and you're getting to almost 100 missed tackles forced. That's ridiculous.
That's stupid. Austin Cassell, I think this is hyperbole. Vidal had 1,500 plus yards after contact. That might be for his career, I would imagine. I think.
I hope. Wait, 1,500.
Because that means 1,500 of it, 1,670, whatever, were after contact, which there's no way. Oh man. So they go Vidal, right? And that is a huge need. Everyone was talking about running backs. We had our best fit for the Chargers. I think he ended up as my RB7 for the Chargers specifically. The Chargers get him as a best fit prospect in the 6th round. Again, we're talking value BPA status.
So it's not 1,500, but it's still ridiculous. It's 1,056 yards after contact, which is tied second.
Jeez.
Along with
that's still crazy. That's like a third of his yards were after contact.
Yeah.
And his offensive line sucked, by the way.
That's wow. And he's a really good pass pro guy as well. Really good pass pro guy. 200 receiving yards in his final season. So, and if you look on PFF, it's just all blue, which is really nice. It's just all blue, all elite, perfect. And they graded it as an above average pick grade. I would say it was a great look.
And the best part about it was how on brand the pick was of BPA plus improves the running game plus protects Justin Herbert. Bing, bang, boom.
Yeah.
Have a day, sir.
Now you have a running back room of J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Kimani Vidal, and Isaiah Spiller.
And Elijah Dotson.
Dotson that's as well.
That's a room.
Yeah.
That's a room.
Now we're cooking, as the chat has been saying tonight.
And honestly, at this point, I'm thinking wow, all right, so we already doubled it at corner. I'm already thinking, all right, BPA, they're probably going to go 15 Michigan players. They're probably going to go offensive linemen. They need a tight end. They're going to go get a center, whatever. They already got one receiver. I don't want to get too excited here, right? They're not going to do it again, are they? Bang!
Yeah.
BPA City. This is BPA Chargers. So we've got more BPAs in this draft than I think I've seen in the last 5 years of the Chargers drafting. They get Brenden Rice, insane value. And oh, by the way, the 33rd team, and take this for what it's worth, it's a projection, but they have him comped as this year's Puka Nacua.
Who would do that?
All of the 33rd team. Who knows? And again, I know that's a stretch. But if you go look at some of his tweets that he's posted since about him being hungry and now he has
he's hungry.
And look at the pedigree, who his dad is. You think there's competition there? You think he has drive? Let's go. And again, I'm not saying he's Puka Nacua, okay? But I'm saying, I think that is a crazy value. He is not a 7th round wide receiver. At least he wasn't in any mock that you saw. Literally any. So, in my opinion, and this is where it gets fun. You pair him with the last pick, Cornelius Johnson. Jason, you and I were kind of talking about this. They go 3 deep at wide receiver. Which, what? Did anybody have on their bingo card that Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz are going to draft just one offensive lineman and 3 wide receivers. I sure as hell did not.
I 3 receivers was, I would sometimes do 2, but for the most part in mock drafts, I was keeping it as just 1 receiver in the draft because I figured that was probably going to be their limit. Then I saw 2 and I was like, all right, I was pleasantly surprised. And then 3, I was like, okay, well, all right, that's enough slices. Like that's enough. And one other thing, Brenden Rice still only 22. Usually for a 7th round pick, you're usually getting those like older seniors that kind of fall through. Still only 22 years old, so still a young player. 6'2", 208 pounds. The one thing you got to like about Brenden Rice, well, there's plenty to like about him. There's multiple things to like about him. The high character, the plus size athlete. It's really his ability to find space in the red zone and on improv plays. I'm a big fan of what he does when it's up to him and they ask him to be a little bit more creative. And so I think that's going to translate well to a pro style offense. I think with Justin Herbert, you're going to see some points where, you ask your wide receiver 4 to get on the field in impact moments, and maybe you'll see a thing or two happen with Brenden Rice. There's a lot to work with here. You're not going to, I think there's a lot of room to grow against physical corners. I think there's a lot of room to grow in terms of the nuance in his routes, the little bit more, he needs a little bit more refinement. Obviously he's a day 3 guy. There's a little bit that you have to work on, but in terms of getting somebody who's hungry, who has high character, and who has a lot that you can work with in terms of growth, in terms of being able to develop him. He got better every single year at USC. 2020, 120 yards. 2023, 791 and 12 touchdowns. He's a big red zone guy. Absolutely great red zone guy, and his hands got better every year.
He's a finisher.
Yeah.
And the part that I like, I'll read this real quick. Adrian, and by the way, folks in the chat, if you have comments or questions you'd like us to answer for you, let us know. This will be a 1-hour show, so we're going until the top of the hour. So we have until then, and when you get to like 10 minutes, so 10 minutes from now, we'll kind of go rapid fire. So if you have questions or thoughts, put them in there, and we'll put them up on the screen. We'll try to answer them. Adrian says, just want to say, I've been wanting Brenden Rice since February. The dude is a stud. He should have been a top 50 pick given the context of USC's 2023 season. He'll be Herbert's wide receiver 1 by 2026. Last part might be a stretch, but I would agree. In the context of the season that USC had, where the offensive line was absolutely abysmal and their defense was non-existent, I would agree. I don't know top 50, but definitely not 7th. I was thinking like early day 3 was what I had him projected as. But Jason, I think the part that is enticing now is thinking about this wide receiver room now with Cornelius Johnson. Their Raging Bull here says this could be a little bit of like a competition between those two. But talk about the receiving room as a whole now. Because I think what people were wondering was going into the draft, like, what are we going to do? And then once Ladd McConkey was there, it was like, all right, well then, like, how is this going to work? Now that they brought in Brenden Rice, they got Cornelius Johnson, Ladd McConkey. How does that pair with what they currently have, and how do you see that kind of going forward in the season?
Well, they really needed the size outside, right? They really needed somebody to fill out and take the backup X, the backup Z, or even compete for the starting roles there. Josh Palmer's last year under contract. And with Ladd McConkey,
by the way.
With Ladd McConkey, there was a little bit of concern with me in terms of if he was the only receiver taken, which at the time I was pretty convinced that he would be. It turned out to be very wrong. I had a little bit of concern in terms of the overall look of the wide receiver room and that they would just need to move guys around too much, that they wouldn't have a guy to just stand tall outside on the left side and the right side, outside of Quentin Johnston. And once they took Brenden Rice, I got a lot more comfortable because
you got excited.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about the Brenden Rice pick. I like a lot of the tools he brings, and with Cornelius Johnson as well. You're getting
Such
a guy
Harbaugh pick, by the way. Such
you're getting
arm.
a fighter. You're getting a fighter. That's the best way to describe Cornelius Johnson. Is you're getting somebody who's going to fight for the deep ball. He's going to track them, and he's going to fight his tail off to come down with it. And a great run blocker. Just in terms of every single snap, high effort. He's a fighter. And so with Cornelius Johnson, I'm really excited as well, because now you have the outside set in terms of depth, and you have that slot set. And now you have all these pieces you can move around and compete at the wide receiver position. And that makes 7 on the roster or 8 on the roster.
So Quentin. Palmer, Davis, Fehoko. That's 4. Then 7. Yeah. Rice, Johnson, McConkey. 7.
Okay. So you're probably looking at one man out there, I would have to imagine.
You think they're going to go 6 receivers?
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Well, in this offense, I just don't see. Well, the only reason why that could happen is because Davis is special teams.
And so and with the new kickoff rule, it's a lot different. I would say there's a lot more. I would almost say there's going to be like a roster spot dedicated to returners now that new kickoff rule is.
That running back battle is going to be insane, by the way. Fast forward.
Yeah. Between the 4 of them?
Between the last 3, whoever that's going to be.
I think it's the receiver battle. Okay.
Yeah. No, but the running back battle between like Vidal,
Spiller,
Elijah
and
Dotson, and yes. And one of them, one's definitely out. 2, the second one's probably a practice squad guy. Like only one of those guys is remaining.
You think they go 3 active running backs and then one in the practice
probably.
Squad? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It sucks for Spiller too, because you could see something there with him. And that's tough. That's a different conversation for another day, but he's still young too. He's 22, I think, still.
He was the youngest player drafted when he was there. He's still so young.
So there's still
he'll go through his entire rookie contract. I don't know if it's actually true, but his entire rookie contract, and he'll still be younger than Michael Penix.
Sounds right to me.
Which is insane. So yeah, okay. So where do you see this group lining up? Because there's a question here as well about Ben Herbert's plan for McConkey. So we can kind of Hayden asked, what do you think Ben Herbert's plans are for McConkey? I can see him putting on some quality weight like Edelman did when he entered the league. Like, what's the wide receiver room look like right now?
That was an unnecessary shot at the end of that comment.
I know. I didn't read
it. With McConkey, he played a lot outside in Georgia. A lot of people put the slot label on him. I think he only ended up playing in the slot 20% of the time, if I read that right earlier. And I'm going to double check while I talk about him right now.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey played inside and outside, and he played a lot outside, honestly. But I think he's projected to be more of like a slot guy. I would guess it's going to flip. I would guess it's going to be, instead of 80-20 outside inside, I would guess 80-20 inside outside.
So a 70-30 in college as a 3-year starter. 70% of his career snaps came out wide, and 30% were in the slot. And so I think you're probably going to see him. I'm really interested to see if he or Quentin plays the X.
So that was an interesting thought that I had too. And you and I had talked about this, but I'm sure people have seen it. If you haven't, there's a video of Quentin Johnson practicing off-season drills with Maserati Marv. And there are some where Quentin looks pretty close to what Marv looks like on some routes. Now, there are some that Marv is like head and shoulders smoother, like obviously.
Like there was a very obvious difference in some of those clips where you're just like, oh,
like, oh, they look the same. Oh, no, they don't. Oh, no, they don't. Yeah. So
yeah.
but the 2 things I took was, one, he has to come away with that learning new skills. 1. So like, I think he improves just from working out with Marv and that group. 2, I was looking at the routes they were running, and for the most part, those aren't Z routes. Those are boundary routes. And so I do think that he's looking at an XY role with McConkey as a slot guy. So Palmer and Quentin would be XY. Ladd would be Z. 4 receiver set, I think it's probably a battle between Brenden and Cornelius. I doubt Davis really gets much look now with McConkey, to be honest. I guess
Davis,
that's like a gadget thing.
Yeah, Davis might get a few. I'm having trouble thinking of a Greg Roman player that was like wide receiver 5 or 6 that would eat into the touches and get some gadget plays. Not because it didn't happen, just because I don't remember.
Folks are flaming Quentin, by the way.
Oh man. 3 receivers does make you question like that faith in Quentin as well. But I mean, not that it shouldn't be, right?
Does it make you question it?
How they feel about Quentin?
Yeah, I didn't see it that way.
I mean, for the most part, there was that you remember that press conference a couple months ago where Jim Harbaugh started talking about the receivers and then he just kind of trailed off.
Yeah,
like,
I do remember that.
Yeah, our receivers are receivers. It's like,
yeah, but then I think it was like what 2 days ago that he was like, "Don't sleep on Quentin, don't sleep on Palmer."
Yeah, and
I mean, what else is he going to say?
I'm definitely not, because it was his rookie season, and even though it's not common these days for rookie receivers to like struggle out the gate, like so many rookie receivers are coming in and just hitting the ground running, but that used to be the norm with rookie wide receivers. That used to be completely normal, is to struggle in that first season and improve as you go through your career. It used to be so common that they would take receivers and just kind of redshirt them for a year, basically. And that's changing in recent years. In fact, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Keenan Allen, his rookie season was at the time like a top 5 rookie season in NFL history for receivers. And now if you pair it up with like all the receivers that have come since, it's like barely top 15. It's actually crazy. Like it was Keenan Allen and AJ Green. And then you had to go back and look for guys like, I don't even remember, like Terrell Owens, I think, to find like similar receivers with just hit the ground running right out the gate. And now all the receivers do it. So have a little bit of patience with Quentin Johnston, because it, like I said, it used to be a process to wait for these players to develop. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it did feel like in case things don't work out with the receivers we have, or some receivers we let walk, or to, because I think they're going to get the compact for Palmer. That's just the feeling I get.
And honestly, if it was me now, being the room, probably would.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what happens. I'd wait till week 6. I'd wait till week 6 to refrain from judgment. But I do think Quentin is going to improve. And the easy response that would be, well, yeah, he has to. He's not going the other way. Like, I do think he's going to be better. And I do think
I've seen some players go the other way.
Yeah, but I do think that scheme and coaching will matter in this regard, because I do think scheme and coaching did not help Quentin last year.
Not at all. It was a really weird situation. We're not gonna keep hitting on that, but it really was a weird situation where it felt like they drafted him to replace Mike, and that's not his role at all. So
no,
we'll have to see how Greg Roman uses him. But in terms of like the play action, catch and run on crossing routes, I like that for Quentin Johnston a lot more than what they were asking him to do last year. And I do think
a lot last year was because a lot of the injuries and stuff. He kind of was forced to do a lot more than he thought. But then, like, even with that, you'd think that brain trust can then adapt, and it just never happened. And that's one of the things, Jason, that I love about the new regime is how huge the brain trust is. Like, I trust the populace to where cooler minds or smarter minds will prevail. I could literally hear the lick in the mic. That was too good, by the way.
Sorry.
But no. But like having that many people in the kitchen to give perspective that have been around this for a long time, to where like if something crazy is happening, someone's going to say something. And most likely a lot of people are going to say something. It's not going to be like 4 or 5 people who are like making all of the decisions. One of the things that's clear from the press conference is how much they welcome feedback, and they welcome criticism and things that people's ideas across the staff. So big for me.
What was Michael Crabtree's? This is a good question here from Talk of New York. I'm assuming what that is. How did Crabtree do once Harbaugh got a hold of him? A year after Jim came on the scene, Crabtree had a huge year.
I remember he was great in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, what was Crabtree, or what was Harbaugh's first year in San Francisco? Was it 12?
It was the first year they went from bad to good. So if you go look at the Niners records, look at the year they were bad. The next year is when Harbaugh came.
So yeah, Crabtree broke out in 2012. Was it 2011 that Harbaugh got there? It looks like they got a lot better.
I think so.
But Crabtree not rebounded. He progressively got a lot better in that scheme, capping out at 1,105 yards and 9 touchdowns with San Francisco in 2012. Don't know how Crabtree compares to Quentin Johnston. I think they're pretty different. I haven't watched Crabtree in a long time, so I might be wrong on that. But just that is something to keep in mind as you keep track of these guys.
I do like the fact that some cooler heads and some more respectful heads are coming in here and giving some grace to Quentin Johnston and time. I think he deserves it. Like there's a lot of headwinds there.
He definitely deserves a little more patience than what he's gotten. Even the Chargers did not expect him to come out and be a wide receiver 1 for a couple of weeks there. And for what it's worth, in that last stretch of games you could see something there. But even still, I didn't like how they were using him as the X receiver in those games. So still something there. What was your favorite pick? I'm actually curious. What was your favorite pick? Because I'm trying to think of one ever since you started the episode with that question, and I don't know that I have like a favorite pick. Like none really stands out as like that by far is my favorite pick. I really liked all of them.
It was, if I'm just talking pure favorite picks, it was probably Cam Hart, just because of like the value and the need, and BPA, because all three were hit there. It was probably those two, or that one, or Junior Colson. Honestly, like Junior Colson, that pick was like, it was just like all things kind of came together for it. It was just the perfect pick. Like they talk about like the setting the stage and setting the the culture, right, of this team, and like Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey, and Junior Colson, all three of those are just like perfect culture setters in three different positions: offensive line, trenches, receiver room that needs that, and a defense that needs something that connects all of them, and that can. I'm telling you, the fact that he can connect staff, scheme, players with one player. Like that, I can't think of another player that can tie everything together as much as Junior Colson is doing, or will do. And again, he was playing with no hands last year. Like this kid is tough as nails. Like he didn't want to come out of the game.
I think Junior Colson would have been my favorite, but I'm gonna go with Vidal. I think just because it was such everybody was expecting the quorum in the third, and I remember when Twitter blew up when they said Harbaugh got one of his boys. No, Chargers Twitter lost it. I heard no, just across the feed, and then it was Junior Colson, and everybody was like, "Let's go!" And so to hear Vidal go a little 3 rounds later, and I just think that's such a good value pick, and I think it's such a
value.
It shows for me. It's the development of Jim Harbaugh from 2013 and 14, like that era right there, to now, and his difference in what he's looking for in players. Because I think we all assumed it would be somebody like Estime or Corum, and I wouldn't have minded Estime at all. I would have loved Estime.
He was on my like, please.
Yeah, but it was really interesting, right, to see Vidal, because I didn't really that duo. I didn't see that between Harbaugh and Vidal. I didn't see that fit necessarily. So
I totally saw that. I totally
did.
Saw
You
it.
Okay?
Yeah, we had the episode, and I was like, yup. Yeah, I had him as a better fit than Estime. I had him as a better fit than Estime.
Better the fit than estimate. Interesting. Do you have some of the UDFAs that have come through?
No, I was going to ask if people in the chat, like, if there's a link that you can post. Again, we're live, so I can't really do this. If you want to look for it, I'll go through some of these comments here.
I have a couple on here.
I saw Florida State. I saw a Florida State safety. I saw a tight end.
Yeah. So Akeem Dent out of Florida State. I don't know too much about him, but I'll try to get information on all these guys and share that information over the course of the weekend. A couple of receivers as well. One out of East Carolina. Beats me. Jalen Johnson.
Not that Jalen Johnson. Different one.
Different Jalen Johnson. 6'2", 45 catches for 466 yards in his final 12 games in college.
He's a receiver?
Wide receiver out of ECU. And then there was another receiver. I'm looking for him right now. Jalen Gill out of Fresno State. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
They went receiver heavy. I'm pumped to look at the UDFAs.
So I'll get a good idea of who these guys are, and maybe I'll do an episode of them this weekend or on Monday, and share a little bit more about the UDFAs. Do you know who Thomas Harper, DB out of Notre Dame? I'm not familiar with him.
No.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not too familiar with any of these names. But
that's another advantage. It's another advantage that Harbaugh has is like knowing the
college landscape,
knowing and recruiting. Like he could easily imagine the conversation. Hey, I recruited you. You went somewhere else. I'm recruiting you again. We got a spot. Like, I think that is paying off in spades, and will continue to pay off in spades. Just going from college, winning the national championship, bringing that to the NFL, and then be able to go back and dip to where you were. Like, I think that is invaluable. There's a question in here. My question from a tier, we hear you. My question: what happened to all of these clowns that say the Spanos family will not give up power? Ha! John Spanos made 0 picks, and he was just saying hi to the players. I mean, we could have said this months ago, but as soon as Harbaugh was brought in, I think that should have been the smoke signal that
that was the big deal, right? Is a lot of people didn't know if it would happen. I'm being attacked right now. A lot of people didn't know if it would happen because of that control that we don't know for sure that they had or still have. We don't know anything about that, to be honest with you. But I think those questions should have been alleviated, or I don't know if that's the right word, but set aside when Harbaugh was hired, because no way was Harbaugh going to join a team where he doesn't have that semblance of control, and Ortiz as well, honestly. So I don't have that concern, and there was definitely a shift, right? And whether that's just moving on from Telesco, or whether that's a organizational philosophy of we're just going to let Ortiz and Harbaugh do what they're going to do, the shift was felt either way. So regardless of what happened or what was going on there, something changed. And thank you for whoever gave up, whoever sacrificed what was necessary.
Fitness says, how do we know that? I'm assuming he's knowing that Spanos is relinquishing power. I mean, I guess you never actually know, but you look at the guys in the room and what they're saying. I mean, we have heard them say that John Spanos has been in all the rooms, is giving insight. Like, we've heard that. But we've heard Jim Harbaugh, and we've heard Dean Spanos, and we've heard Joe Ortiz. All three of them discuss kind of who runs what when. And Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh have both explained that Joe Ortiz is the Batman in this part of the season. And then Jim Harbaugh will be the Batman once the season starts. And Jim Harbaugh talked at length.
I'm excited for Jim Harbaugh in the Batman suit.
In the game, like in game plan, Jim Harbaugh, like, yes. And how cool is it for folks that have seen, and we're getting close here to the end, maybe about 5-10 minutes tops. Get your rapid fire questions in here. Send them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. How cool is it to see Jim Harbaugh? Jim Harbaugh just gushing over the brilliance of Joe Ortiz in his mind. and just seeing Joe Ortiz just like, finesse the whole thing. Like how, according to Jim Harbaugh, has had this thing on lock and everyone is in lockstep. And for Jim Harbaugh to say that, like he talked about, I think his dad was saying, like you bring the experts in the room and you listen to them because they know more than you. Like it's been cool to see, and to see like the smiles after they start talking about certain picks where they're just like excited about it. Like that's new. That's new.
Very cool. Side note, for what it's worth, Tarheeb Still had an 88.4 run defense grade in 2023.
Shocker. Shocker. He was picked by Jim Harbaugh.
Interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, it's almost like surreal. Like sometimes you see like Jim Harbaugh in a Chargers shirt and you're like,
that's not real.
What? Who's that? But yeah, I think seeing it in real time, seeing it all come together, I feel like we know a lot more, or we're seeing a lot more between Jim Harbaugh and his staff and Joe Ortiz than we have in recent years with coaches like Brandon Staley or Anthony Lynn, even with the All In episodes. I feel like we're seeing a lot more of them and what they're sharing a little bit more in terms of football knowledge with the fan base, and sharing a little bit more in terms of their philosophy and what they bring to the table. And it's really cool to see because we're able to take what we've seen in those press conferences and those videos and apply it to what we've seen in the draft. And it all fits. It all meshes together really well. And I can't help but think about Ben Herbert's interview or his press conference and apply it to the players coming into the Chargers. And man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see training camp unfold. I'm excited to see how these players develop and grow. Because when I just take this coaching staff and look at this all-star coaching staff they put together here and apply it to these players and kind of get that vision together in my mind, it's really intriguing and it's really fun because you can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Jason, I don't know if you saw this, but because you got this before. I'm not trying to hate. State the fact. But you look a little like Staley. You've been told this before, have you not?
So Cam Hart's run defense grade in 2023 was a 73.7. I have gotten that so many times now. Probably a dozen times now.
I should just change your name here on the overlay.
Robert
S says Chargers will have a top 5 offensive line this year.
Hard to argue. I need to see it to believe it because I haven't seen that ever. So, or in a long time at least. Yeah, I mean, listening to Harbaugh talk about putting the 5 together, the best 5 together. I'm really curious on what they do with this offensive line group. I do take it personal. And I do take the Staley lookalike thing personal. But seeing how they put things together with that O-line is going to be really interesting to me. They kind of hinted that one of Alt or Pipkins could move inside and play the best 5. And it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how that works out. But so far, you look at Slater, Zion looks like the Incredible Hulk this season. And then Alt on the outside. I didn't think Salyer played as bad as people tell me he did, but I'll trust people who know more about O-line than I do. Apparently Salyer was terrible. I didn't see it, but
there wasn't much that was great on the offensive line. And so I think that's what.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it was really scheme dependent on, and Lindsley getting hurt. Kellen Moore did not do a lot to help the O-line in terms of, he honestly couldn't. It's not like they had a good pass pro running back. They didn't have good tight ends that have pass pro. So it's like, there's not a lot he could have done, honestly. No. The protection plans just weren't very good. And so I'm really interested. I'm really excited to see how, with Greg Roman, with play action, with a good run game, with better O-linemen, a better O-lineman, I'm really interested in what we get. I'm really interested in what the lineup is and what the 5 looks like.
Yep. Chargers fans, we have made it through the NFL draft. The Chargers selections, again, I'll put these on the screen here so folks can kind of look at this. I'm going to ask the question in the chat to end this thing out. Through round 7, the Chargers, let's go round 7 of the draft by itself. I won't include free agency, but given what we know in free agency and now the draft, what would you give this Chargers draft? What grade would you give it? In the chat, let us know. Jason, I'm going to show some of these names again. What was as you've had time to think about it, what is your overall draft grade for this Chargers team? Day 3, Cornelius Johnson, Brenden Rice, Kimani Vidal. I'd argue 2 of those are BPAs.
I'm going to say
Cam Hart.
I really liked those last 3 picks. Leaning towards a B+.
B+ total?
I would say a B+ total.
Okay. Tarheeb Still, Justin Eboigbe, and then the big 3, Ladd McConkey, who, by the way, some people were saying like that was totally like I saw someone say that was a John Spanos type pick. Like I'd argue the opposite. Like
no,
there were some guys who were absolutely that type of pick for what we've seen in the past. Ladd McConkey was like a Greg Roman, Joe Ortiz, Jim Harbaugh prototype. Like after day 1, when I sat back and thought, okay, who is a receiver that actually makes sense to this Chargers staff? You could ask the guys at the draft party. I literally said to them, Ladd McConkey, and then 1 pick after the thing starts, they trade up to go get him.
Yeah. It's there. I only had 1 player above him, and he went way later, so my analysis of him was probably off, and that was Javon Baker in terms of wide receiver.
You were
in terms of I was really high on. I still am really high on Javon Baker. I really like his fit in New England, but we're not a New England podcast, so he's dead to us.
No. Sidebar. Miami, Kansas City, Philly.
So good, man. The Phillies draft made me so mad. They got Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
How does it keep happening? That's the meme, right? From Breaking Bad.
How do they keep getting away with this? It's so brutal.
Look at these grades, dude. A, B+, A, A-. I know we're Chargers fans. A lot of you guys are here, but still, like, people here would say A at the moment. A, no bad picks, though. B+. So far,
that's
the worst
big thing.
Seen.
That's the big thing, and why I give it a B+. There was no bad picks there was no pick where I thought that was a reach. And we talked about this earlier. There was no projects here. This is go get impact players. Go get instant impacts. And you could see the vision, and that's ultimately why I like the draft so much, and why I feel like giving it a B+ is a little low. But at the same time, it's like I think
you don't want to just hand out A's, right? You don't want to hand out A's, like
right.
But when you look at it, you're like, dude.
I feel like I reserve A's for like when you get Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and not have to trade. Like, come on, man.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's get to some of these last comments here. Dan Deitch, Colson's going to be the leader of the defense. Mighty says they got some great DBs, though they did a good job. That stressed me out more than anything in this draft. Was between round 4 and round 5 wait for the 2 DBs. Yeah,
that was brutal.
Were
there any really good DBs taken in round between those picks? I'm trying to think. Let me look.
Let's see. TJ Tampa was taken after, I believe.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge. That didn't break my heart.
Abrams Drain was taken later.
That broke my heart a little bit because I love Abrams
Drain. The Joneses went. Both Joneses went.
That's the
one. When I saw Elijah Jones, I was like, oh no. And then Jerry Jones went.
After the Chargers took Eboigbe, is how you say it? Eboigbe?
I think so, yeah.
Kyrie Jackson went a few picks later, 3 picks later. Javon Baker went 2 picks after that. Camarion Richardson, is that how you say it?
Yep.
He went.
Nehemiah Pritchett went right before us.
Yes. And then there was kind of like a lull, and then it was TJ Tampa and Jaden Hicks went. Jaden Hicks, more of a safety. But
yeah.
TJ Tampa went at pick 130. So not too many corners actually went after they did that. Pritchett went.
I was just so grateful they got Cam Hart, man, because again, like they could still go free agency, which I honestly expect them to do so. I think they're going to bring in a veteran guy on like a 1-year rental, who's probably going to be CB1 in my eyes. So stay tuned there. But a lot of comments here. Larry A to round this thing out. Locked, cocked, ready to rock. Quick question, generally, who won the draft? Like, I know Chicago only had 4 picks, but dude, like
the franchise-altering picks, though.
Yeah, Caleb and Rome by itself, like you could not have asked for better than that.
And what they did with the picks that they traded is the thing. Like, wasn't DJ Moore also one of the selection? He was one of the guys attained with one of the picks here, and then Keenan Allen as well. And then Rome Odunze and Caleb. So you got to think of it like Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. Like just a franchise-altering offseason for the Chicago Bears. They're not the same team at all.
No. Like I was listening to a show on the way home last night, and they're talking about like, when's the last time you saw the number 1 overall pick land in a situation like this? Like, I can remember when Joe Burrow was drafted, like what that looked like, and Trevor Lawrence, what that looked like. Like, that's normal. What Daniel Jones went to, like, that's normal. This is not normal. Like, they're thinking playoff team already.
They did a really good job of figuring out how to get veterans in there and also getting another high first-round pick to back up their quarterback and to help them out leading into the season.
Yeah. So you said B+. I think I'm going A- here. You know, I struggled to give it a solid A. There were a couple picks that I would probably say that maybe kept it as like an unknown. Like when they went and got Tarheeb Still, like, again, I have no clue about that. But like, I don't think you can say that was a BPA pick.
Yeah, I need to watch him because when I think of Still and then think of like Abrams Drain, who went a little bit later, who has fantastic numbers.
I love Abrams Drain.
Great tape. I need to watch Tarheeb Still is essentially what's keeping me from maybe making this an A-. Yeah. Because maybe I just really love his tape, or maybe I don't like it at all. I don't know. I have no idea. I'll let you guys know.
Last few comments before we get out of here. If you have not done so already, please help us out. I think we are like 50 away from 7K subs, which is still mind-blowing. I pinch myself thinking about that. It's been a crazy road. If you knew what was going on behind the scenes a few years ago and stuff that ended up happening to where we're starting over, like it's been wild. But you folks have rocked with us. We appreciate all of the comments, the feedback, the reviews, all of it. So please hit that like and subscribe. Helps out a ton. We did have a giveaway, by the way, for the NFL Draft Jersey of Choice. That was announced yesterday. And we'll have some more giveaways to come. Last comments here, Jason. This draft will light a fire under Zont, especially Quentin. The position battles will be fire in camp. Jason, I'll let you take away the last remaining comments before we get out of here.
Looks like Atir. How do you say his name? I'm not sure.
Atir, I believe.
Atir. Looks like he has a question at some point, but I can't find it. But I'm really sorry.
We have this many people in the live stream. So Atir,
ask again.
Copy paste.
Ask again, and let's hear. A++. That's high praise. High praise from Pacific Beats. I don't know about an A++, but I might change it to a B++. How about that? We'll go with a B++.
Super B+. Okay.
What is a super B+? What is that? A-. On the Justin Eboigbe. Mm-hmm. Will he be a starter? Do you think? Puna Ford. Who's the other guy? Poona Ford
Scott
and who?
Matlock, Otito.
It's thin. It's thin. So you won't catch any argument from me. Process of elimination says
Yeah.
you are probably correct.
Yep.
Who totes the rock more this year?
That's great
actually
question.
A really good question.
Because the wild card is Gus or J.K. Dobbins. That's the wild card.
Yeah. Is he J.K. Dobbins of 2022 or 20? Right, 2022, 20. Because every time he's gotten healthy, he's still been amazing.
The rookie season, I think, was when he was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, but even when he came back, he was still averaging.
Yeah, he's good for 3 games or something.
Yeah, I mean, if he's healthy and good to go, and is the same old J.K. Dobbins like he's promising us, like that's
great. Like that's a great 1, 2, 3 running back room.
Yeah. So that's a tough question, but based on the safe answer right now, I'm going to say Gus.
Ooh, we're getting some fun questions here. Hart is one of the only DBs to lock down Marvin Harrison Jr.
Was he?
How many day one starters can you count from this draft? 3 for 3 the first 2 rounds.
Let's take a look at the depth chart and the names around them. So Joe Alt's going to start. Ladd's going to start. Junior's going to start. Eboigbe is going to start.
You think he starts? Okay.
I mean, who's going to start over him?
No. I mean, there's an argument there for sure. I think Cam Hart's going to have a starting role. I don't know if he's CB 1 or 2, but he's going to be playing for sure.
I think 5 starters is probably a safe answer here.
Which is insane. And I don't know if that says more about the draft or how insanely bad this roster was set up prior to it. It's probably a combination of both. But good Lord.
Yeah, I'm going to say 5. And I'm going to say that the 5th is between Still and Hart. Not saying that Still would start over Hart. I think they're going to play different positions.
Yes,
but
agreed.
I don't know if they'll start Still over Jasir Taylor, and I don't know if they're just going to start Hart over Fulton in year 1. We'll have to see. I think Hart will eventually start a game. I think
he'll play I think he can play meaningful snaps this year for sure.
Yeah, I think he's going to start a few games this year, just based on injury.
But even the ones he's not starting, I think he will be playing.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think he's going to play a big role in special teams as well. So, I mean, all these guys are going to have an impact in year 1. The only one I would probably say is probably not going to have too much of an impact in year 1 at all is probably Johnson, Cornelius.
There'll be a fight for sure. Last question here. Dan says, how long will it take for McConkey to be the number 1? I think it happens this year.
The number 1 receiver?
Yeah.
Like total over Palmer and QJ?
Yeah. I think he'll have more receptions than all of them.
More receptions than all of them. That is something Palmer has not stayed healthy I don't think he has had a healthy season yet. So I'll agree with that. That's
going to be a vacuum cleaner. Like the way that Greg Roman, I think, is going to utilize Ladd, like he's going to be the Keenan.
Yeah, I think Ladd is going to
with juice. Like he can be the Keenan, go over the top.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree and say Ladd. I'm gonna say Ladd is going to take it this year.
I'm with you. Chargers fans, you got yourself some dogs. You got yourself some guys. Jim Harbaugh pounding the chest, talking about the guys that he got. Did you see the Michigan jacket, by the way, they had, which was so cool? See the inside of the jacket?
Which jacket?
You didn't see it. Jim Harbaugh at the press conference, he's talking about Junior Colson, and he opens up his jacket. He's got the Michigan lining on the inside, all the guys' names or whatever it was, and he's got. It was.
I didn't see that. I need to see that.
Go watch the day 2 press conference.
All right,
it was so good.
Dude.
So
all
good.
Right.
So Chargers fans, you got your guys. Chargers got a lot of impact players. Thank you all for rocking with us. I know this has been a wild ride for Chargers fans who are trying to keep from going crazy and how this draft unfolded. I know it did not start the way a lot of people thought. It was a windy road to get through round 7.
That's all right.
But by the time that plane landed, I've seen pundits nationally say that they had arguably one of the best drafts in the entire NFL. Like that's the thing that's being talked about right now. So
it was a good draft.
It was a very good draft, a different draft, one that had
An
purpose,
impactful draft,
and a set the stage, set the tone type of draft for how this team is looking to be and what opponents should expect. So exciting times ahead. Jason, any parting words, last parting words to the fans, to listeners before we head out of here?
I'm going to not be cheesy and say what everybody's been saying all night, but it was a fun draft.
Dan and Staley.
You can end it, Dan.
Jason's like, I'm out. Okay, Brandon Staley has exited stage left. Look, for Jason, myself, Jake Hefner, look what you guys did. You got Jason to literally leave the room. That's insane. That's great. For Jason, for everybody at Chargers Unleashed, LA Football Network, Chargers fans, you all are the best. Appreciate all of you. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Go outside, talk to your friends, be excited. It's a new era of Chargers football. Children, men, women, guys, gals, thank you so much for all that you guys do to support us. Again, if you have not done so already, please hit that like and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.